We saw in our last study it had taken the angel 3 weeks to fight through demonic opposition to reach Daniel. We saw that a real supernatural battle is taking place in the spiritual realm. Things we don't see directly, yet we see the effects of these battles in our earthly realm. Some might ask, isn't God all-powerful? If he's omnipotent, why doesn't he just terminate the demonic opposition? One day he'll do just that. But right now, even the demons are serving a purpose. As they oppose God, we learn to persist in prayer and the need to stand against evil. We can learn many lessons in the struggle preparing us for eternity. An elite athlete doesn't just run onto the field on game day without having spent many tough years in training. So it is with us now. This is our time of testing and training. We're toiling now for the King, preparing for eternity. There are 135 specific prophecies given to Daniel by the angel in this 11th chapter. We looked at the first 4 verses in our last study. In verses 5 through 20, the vision focuses on the 2 divisions of Greece that constantly fought over the promised land. The land of Israel sat between their centres of power. The kings of the north, in salmon on screen, are the Seleucid dynasty, a fragment of the Grecian Empire. The kings of the south, in green on screen, are the Ptolemaic dynasty, another division of Alexander's empire. The Greek, Seleucid, and Ptolemaic dynasties fought for about 150 years. Whichever was in ascendancy, held the land of Israel as a buffer territory. Imagine 2 children fighting over a teddy bear, ripping and tearing the arms and legs of the bear. Israel was the metaphorical teddy bear, and the Seleucid and Ptolemaic dynasties the childlike kingdoms who fought over it. To give a short summary of Daniel 11, we have 5 significant kings predicted amongst numerous other rulers, all with names starting with A. Verse 2 introduces Ahasuerus, also known as Xerxes, the 4th Persian ruler, called far richer than them all. We looked at him in our last study. Verse 3 talks of a mighty Grecian king, Alexander the Great. We've looked at him in several of our studies in Daniel. Verse 10 predicts Antiochus III, or Antiochus the Great. By the way, he gave himself that title, Antiochus the Great, clearly a humble man. Verse 21 predicts the coming of a vile person, Antiochus IV, or Antiochus Epiphanes. In verse 36 we see the willful king, who is the Antichrist. This is Daniel's A-list: Ahasuerus, Alexander, Antiochus III, Antiochus IV, and Antichrist. Daniel 11:5 through 20 gives precise predictions that disturb the Bible critic. How did Daniel know this history before it happened? Unless you know the history well, this section of scripture is difficult to follow. And truth be told, it's a little dry. You can see summarised on screen the rulers Daniel predicted would come in these verses. We're going to start our study today at verse 21. We'll concentrate today on the vile person, a king of the north, a Greek ruler of the Seleucid dynasty, the 4th notable A from our previous slide, Antiochus Epiphanes. This is the angel speaking to Daniel. Verse 21. And in his place shall arise a vile person, to whom they shall not give the honour of royalty, but he shall come in peaceably, and seize the kingdom by intrigue. This vile person is Antiochus IV, also known as Antiochus, that means anti-support, Epiphanes, that means God manifest. Though his enemies called him not Epiphanes, not God manifest, but Epimanes, the maniac or the madman. Apart from the possible murder of his brother, Antiochus came to power by intrigue, peaceably. He used smooth promises. He flattered the leaders of Pergamus and Syria. He sent ambassadors to Rome to court favour. Antiochus Epiphanes was like the Antichrist, who'll rise to power as a lying peacemaker. We need leaders today, both in our churches and community, who are people of their word, people of dignity and honour, the opposite to Antiochus. But sadly, many congregations prefer men who are all front and no substance. As a consequence, we have vomit-inducing, fad topic homilies filled with psychology, now polluting the minds of the saints. Church congregations have been subjected to very low teaching standards. Many saints wouldn't have the discernment to mark and avoid false doctrine and false teachers. The same in our secular society. Our voting public will happily choose a fast-talking, good-looking politician over a reliable, honest person. Think Macron in France, or remember Trudeau in Canada. How did they vote that man in? Or Obama in the USA. Yes, we can. Mr. Empty Vessel. Cream puff fairy floss leaders. All show and no go. All bark and no bite. All hat and no cattle. All icing and no cake. All foam and no beer. Our society prefers flashy and new, even if these things often come with little substance. And then you have men like Keir Starmer. How on earth did the Brits elect him as their Prime Minister, Keir Starmer? Surely a man with no show and no go, the personality of a fax machine. What are the Brits doing? Verse 22, with the force of a flood, they shall be swept away from before him and be broken, and also the prince of the covenant. As he pretended to be friendly with the south, he was plotting his conquest of Egypt. His invasion of Egypt failed. Antiochus Epiphanes' plotting came to nothing. The reference to the Prince of the Covenant is difficult to interpret with certainty. Matthew Henry has it that this is a reference to Antiochus's nephew, who was the rightful heir and with whom Antiochus pretended to be in covenant with. He would rule till the boy was older, or so he pretended. But my interpretation is that this Prince of the Covenant to be broken was the high priest Onias III, who Antiochus removed from office and replaced with wicked high priest Jason. Verse 23, and after the league is made with him, he shall act deceitfully, for he shall come up and be strong with a small number of people. Satan is the father of lies, and all who follow Satan follow in the lying ways of Satan. This is one of many reasons why followers of Jesus should be people of our word. We must be people of integrity. We need to be seen as servants of light, dealing only in truth, so we can contrast the deceitfulness of the enemy. But also remembering to only speak the truth in love. We should never use the truth as a weapon to hurt those who are lost. Verse 24, he shall enter peaceably, even into the richest places of the province. He shall do what his fathers have not done, nor his forefathers. He shall disperse among them the plunder, spoil, and riches. And he shall devise his plans against the strongholds, but only for a time. Be careful of those who flatter and seem too good to be true. They almost always are. Antiochus could try all he might to pretend to be friendly, generous, and giving. But this man was an egomaniac. Everything he ever did was calculated for his own personal gain. All his plotting and scheming came to naught. And when I see many of the world's televangelists, I see largely men who are egomaniacs, desperate for fame and power, and most of all, desperate to get their hands on your money. Verse 25, he shall stir up his power and his courage against the king of the south with a great army, and the king of the south shall be stirred up to battle with a very great and mighty army. But he shall not stand, for they shall devise plans against him. The king of the south wasn't fooled by Antiochus Epiphanes' kind words and pretense of friendship. The king of the south, Egypt, was well prepared to defend against Antiochus, and he succeeded, with the help of Rome, in fending off the north. It's a pity some of our modern Western leaders don't study history closely enough. I think any country that is not well prepared to defend themselves has only themselves to blame when a more powerful enemy attacks them. There are plenty of political groups and parties that would have nations drastically reduce funding on the defence of their countries. They'd rather divert military spending to increasing foreign aid, fighting climate change, promoting gender equality, and various other virtue signalling social causes. Verse 26. Yes, those who eat of the portion of his delicacies shall destroy him. His army shall be swept away, and many shall fall down slain. The ironic truth for Antiochus was that after all his plotting and scheming, after his failed campaign in Egypt, his northern kingdom was nothing but a lesser Grecian dynasty under the dominion of Rome. In his quest for power, he diminished his realm considerably. The specific prophecy, those who eat of the portion of his delicacies shall destroy him, was fulfilled in the treachery against Antiochus by his own counsellors. Verse 27. Both these kings' hearts shall be bent on evil, and they shall speak lies at the same table. But it shall not prosper, for the end will still be at the appointed time. While returning to his land with great riches, his heart shall be moved against the holy covenant. So he shall do damage and return to his own land. Both the kings of the south and north were evil men, speaking lies to each other whilst pretending to be friends. But both would ultimately face destruction at the appointed time. Their plotting amounted to nothing. That's all carnal plotting and scheming ever ultimately amounts to. Nothing. Antiochus returned to the north with plunder, but the battle was lost. He vented his anger against Jerusalem, against the Holy Covenant, on his way back home. You can see that image of the teddy bear getting its arms and legs ripped off. Verse 29, At the appointed time he shall return, and go toward the south, but it shall not be like the former, or the latter. For ships from Cyprus shall come against him. Therefore he shall be grieved, and return in rage against the Holy Covenant, and do damage. Antiochus, it seems, was not a man who learned his lessons. Many years later he again strove south to attack Egypt. But this time Roman ships from Cyprus intervened and thwarted his plans. And again Antiochus vented his anger against Israel and Jerusalem on his return home. So he shall return and show regard for those who forsake the Holy Covenant. And forces shall be mustered by him, and they shall defile the sanctuary fortress. Then they shall take away the daily sacrifices and place there the abomination of desolation. The Jews who abandoned Yahweh worship Antiochus rewarded. Greek paganism plagued Israel at this time. Antiochus desecrated the temple with a pig sacrifice in the Holy of Holies. He forced the Levitical priests to eat the flesh and drink the blood of the slain pigs. He set up a statue of Zeus in the Holy of Holies. He thought he was Zeus in the flesh. The setting up of this statue in the temple is described as the abomination of desolation. Some Christians misunderstand the abomination of desolation events. They believe it to be fulfilled prophecy. Antiochus did commit an act of abomination that caused desolation. He caused the sacrificial system to cease. But he did this merely as the forerunner, the type, the model to watch out for. The terrible acts of the Antichrist are still to play out. Jesus, 2 centuries after Antiochus, warned his disciples the abomination of desolation was unfulfilled prophecy, telling us this abomination event would be replicated. Antichrist will mirror the behaviour of Antiochus, but he'll far exceed the evils of Antiochus. Antiochus's actions were merely a teaser of what's still to come. When Antichrist sets up his image and all are forced to take his mark, the greatest tribulation in human history will unfold. Verse 32, Those who do wickedly against the covenant, he shall corrupt with flattery. But the people who know their God shall be strong and carry out great exploits. And those of the people who understand shall instruct many. Yet for many days they shall fall by sword and flame, by captivity and plundering. Some Jews forsook God and turned to Greek heathenism, but other Jews were faithful and stood against the tide of evil. Great exploits were performed by the people who know their God. When you know you're on God's side, it instills great confidence. Think of Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego. Judas Maccabeus, the hammer, ultimately led a rebellion against the Greeks and won a mighty victory, but many Jews died in their wars of freedom. Antiochus killed about 80,000 Jews at the time, imprisoned about 40,000, and sold 40,000 into slavery, all whilst emptying the temple treasuries. This was a time of great suffering for the Jews. Daniel had hoped that Cyrus's decree would allow the Jews independence and self-ruling, but this new vision laid out centuries of the Jews being trampled, oppressed and enslaved. We'll finish at this point and focus our next study on the angel's prophecy about the fifth notable a ruler we know as the Antichrist. Until then, may God richly bless you all. Amen.